Howdy, everybody. Welcome to, there we go, Liberty Libations number 133. My name is Jake Green, and it sounds like I'm in an empty room, and I apologize for that. We have no idea why. We've troubleshooted a bunch of stuff, and it's just...
Is it troubleshooted or troubleshot?
I feel like, good question. I don't know. Is it troubleshot or is it troubleshooted?
I have no idea.
That's a weird troubleshot.
Are you sure, Zane?
As sure as I can be without looking it up.
Is it?
I'm going to go the other way.
Or for wind?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's troubleshooted. I think it's troubleshooted. So somebody go look that up, and we'll
for wind looking up if it's actually troubleshooted or troubleshot.
Yes, we are late. Yes, the intro had a different title than what the actual title of the show is. Apologies for that. We changed the title after we realized the article that we had that we were going to do.
It's like
we were going to talk about was 8 years old. You can thank Stephen Hilton for that. We'll throw him under the bus if he's not on the show this week. So instead, we're going to talk about libertarianism and some things involved with that here in a bit. But Zane, what are you drinking tonight, man?
I've got a shock top Belgian white.
Okay. Alden, what are you drinking?
Speaking of Stephen being absent, I feel like I had to drink an IPA since he's not here. So I've got
Zane's going to be upset.
Double IPA, yeah. And I'm just like, whatever I got left, and I got to go shopping for some liquor, but orange juice and tequila, I mean, it's alcohol, but it's not that good.
Oh, Alden, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, what's up, man?
The double IPA, does that mean that it tastes twice as much like urine?
Some would say. I would actually, it's kind of funny that when I used to sell beer, I would put more people on like double and triple IPAs that would think they wouldn't like it because the alcohol amount and the malt amount, like there's a little bit more sugar there to kind of balance out the bitterness. So they're often less bitter actually, but good joke though. I like the joke.
Nick, what are you doing?
Sorry to step on it.
I went to the liquor store and picked up a Evan Hill 7-year-old bottled in bond bourbon.
Nice.
I don't think I've ever had that actually. Is that
I've never had it, and I looked at it and I'm like, $50, okay.
Let me know how you like it.
Yeah. I am drinking Lone River Ranch Water tonight, the spicy version. It has jalapeno. It's freaking refreshing.
I want that like in my pool this weekend. Like,
yeah, when it's like 95 degrees, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Is that a like what's the alcohol base for that? Because sometimes ranch waters are like agave based, and sometimes they're like malt liquor.
This one, let's see. It's a good question. I think it's agave. It says alcohol.
We nailed it there. Rubbing alcohol.
Carbonated water, alcohol, key lime juice concentrate, natural flavors, salt, and organic agave.
Agave. Okay, so I wonder if that's because I think the ranch water, a lot of them are like agave based, which is cool. They're some of my favorite like hard waters.
Yeah, no, these are freaking great. I mean, the only negative side is they have longhorns on the freaking so F that. But other than that, they're delicious.
Think of it as Angus beef is supposed to be paired with it. That's even though I don't actually recommend.
I guess technically that's not a longhorn. Those are way too short of horns. Yeah, those are way too short of horns.
Those are short horns.
Yeah, no, I'll take it. That's a win. Well, yeah, welcome to show number 133 that we're doing from the inside of a space capsule that echoes like crazy. Yeah, I'm up in Montana now, living here full time and actually have good Wi-Fi. We upgraded our Starlink and we've had no problems since we upgraded. So
the state now has more residents than fingers on one person.
What the frick did you just say? What?
Forget about it. Tried to make a joke.
Oh my god!
All right.
Joke is nobody lives in Montana.
You can keep trying. That was not a good one.
I guess the implication there is that the two of you are the 5th and 6th residents of Montana.
Got it.
And the other ones are Steve and Ranella, and that's about everyone that lives in Montana.
Well, then we're in good company. Stephen
The
Varnell.
first thing I pictured was when he said, what was it, like more people than fingers? I pictured nobody with hands in the whole stadium.
That is why the nickname of Montana is No Hands Land. It's on the state quarters.
Brian says, a joke is good when you feel the need to explain it.
Yeah.
That is totally fair. All right, y'all. Let's get into the first topic of the evening. We actually don't have any articles pulled up for this. I actually wanted to discuss some of it just based on things that we've seen over the past couple months. And one thing that I've been noticing a lot is, for one, Scott Horton has been getting on shows like crazy, big shows. He was just on Tucker Carlson.
That was a great episode on Tucker.
That episode was incredible. He did such a good job. It was, if you didn't know Scott Horton from before that interview, you would think he was like the most tame, soft-spoken, calm version of Scott Horton that there could possibly be. And then he went on Dave Smith yesterday and just talked your freaking ear off like a madman.
Because he's talking to someone that's like already on his level, and he's not like having to pitch a thing and they can just like jive. Like, yeah.
But even the Tucker interview, Tucker was like, all right, Scott Horton, tell us about the history here. And it was just like then 40 minutes of Scott.
Yeah. He did such a good job, man.
And then Tucker would be like, yeah, and Tucker had the whole like, it'd be like, yeah, I remember that happening. Or he'd come in with like a, like he brought up the Mujahideen, and Tucker's like, yeah, my dad took me to an event back in the day celebrating those guys. And it's like, so Tucker's either agreeing with him or he was like, wait, what is that? Is that for real? Whenever Scott pulled up something and Scott's like, yeah, so this source, this source, this source, this source. And it's like, it was great. And
I also love that Tucker kept like inserting his little bits of knowledge into it all just to make sure people knew that he was following. He knew exactly what Scott was talking about, which was very impressive. He also confessed to be ignorant to a bunch of the things Scott was talking about, which I think most people.
I was just going to say that would, if you're lying to yourself, unless you're maybe Nick or Zane, but if you don't not know some things that he's talking about, but
yeah, because Scott is basically a dictionary of what's been going on for the last century over there. And yeah, if you haven't watched the episode, highly recommend. It's really good.
I just pulled it up. I didn't know that he was on there, so I'm going to watch that later.
Wow, Tucker gave a detailed outline of what exactly they talked about throughout the episode. Holy crap.
That's actually really handy.
No kidding. This is why we need this show to make more money so we can pay somebody to do this.
I'd be afraid to see what ours looks like.
5 minutes fart joke.
5 minutes. Nick explains fingers joke. Like
I think the most insane part of this whole thing is the whole oil pipeline between Iraq and Israel, and that whole part of it. That was a
wild part, man. Yeah, that was an interesting one. But I don't want to just focus just on the Scott Horton Tucker interview. What I want to talk about is more broad than that. It's more how often libertarians and high-profile libertarians are getting in different media. So like Ben Shapiro brought up 2 Dave Smith clips, which, Ben might not be as huge as he was 10 years ago, but tons of people still listen to Ben Shapiro.
He actually used Dave's
regular on Piers Morgan. Scott Horton has been on Piers Morgan a lot. He just went on Tucker. It's interesting to see people who the 4 of us would agree with on 95% of what they say be so featured in the public eye. How do y'all think that came about, and what do y'all think is going on? Zane, let's start with you, buddy.
Right. So first of all, I just want to point out the fact that we're saying that, our guys are going mainstream, and it's because they're going on podcasts and internet shows. Like, I think even the environment that we're in is what makes it possible, where
it's a good point.
20 years ago, the way you went mainstream was by going on these cable programs that no one would let you on unless, as Tom Wood says, you're on the index card of allowable opinion. You're able to debate fiercely in terms of whether we should invade 4 countries or 5 countries. But if someone comes along and says, how about we just be a Republican and invade no countries? They're like, oh no, that's too extreme. We can't have you
Heresy.
on our platform. And I don't think I'm really treading new ground here with this analysis, but the fact that there were only so few places that you could go to be considered mainstream, and it was so protected, the market in ideas was not really functioning to its full extent. Whereas now, because our ideas are so obviously correct and we have really good messengers of them, they can go on the big shows and everybody's like, yeah, that's great. We want to hear more of that, in a way that was not possible until, we were able to actually make it. Like, I think people should stop using the phrase alternative media, because CNN is now the alternative media.
Depends on who you are.
This is now the mainstream of people getting their news from podcasts and internet shows.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, at what point? So when it comes to actually people adopting what they're talking about and actually thinking about what they're talking about and making life decisions and based on the ideas of liberty and libertarianism, do you think we're to a point where people will actually start going that direction, or do you think it's going to fall on deaf ears and we're just going to end up where we have been for the last 80 years?
I don't know. That's really hard to say. Like, I mean, I wasn't really old enough to remember what was going on in 2008 and 2012 with like all the Ron Paul stuff. Yeah. Like, I feel like, and even in the 80s with like Reaganomics being popular and everybody being like, yeah, we want small government. And I think we live in a better society today as compared to if those things would not have happened. But it's also, I don't want to get too super optimistic about how much of a lasting effect will this have, because these kind of things have a tendency to burn themselves out, and then we go back to the status quo of not many people paying attention, and then the government gets huge. It's like even with everybody paying a lot of attention, it's like people really wanted Trump to cut spending and really wanted Trump to release the Epstein files, and he still didn't do either of those things. And it's like, if we couldn't even get it now, it's hard to be optimistic about what could actually happen in the future to make that happen. But hopefully if we have this message out there for a sustained enough period, maybe something will change.
Yeah, and I think it's a huge. I mean, Scott Horton is one of like my favorite folks to listen to as far as anti-war stuff, but he is not everybody's cup of tea, and he, like, the way he speaks is super dense and super difficult to follow if you don't know things in the region and you don't know the history and you don't know names, because he can just rattle off these Middle Eastern names as if, he's like just talking about Josh Smith. He can talk about.
He sounds like he's.
Yeah, when you're talking about Muqtada al-Sadr and Jalaluddin Hekmajar and like.
Yeah.
He sounds like when we're talking about just like fantasy football players or something like that, just like casually talking as if that's that common or something. But
yeah, it is. But the fact that he is getting on all these huge shows, that's a big white pill for me. That's big. People are actually wanting to hear what he has to say. White pill, like hope.
Is that what that means? Okay.
Yeah.
There's too many pills. I don't know.
It's the opposite of black pill,
which is
death, no hope.
Despair.
It's this,
the doom scroll pill.
The other interesting part on that is that was the longest Tucker episode to date.
Yes, it was.
Scott, is that
was
he
it
talked
really?
his ear off for 3 hours.
I'm not that.
Usually they sit around like 2 hours, and so it's like,
funny,
I'm waiting for that day that Scott Horton ends up on Rogan. Yeah, he said he was nervous, but he didn't act nervous on it. He came out there firing.
Agreed. He also mentioned that he's been hanging out with Rogan and Daryl Cooper.
Yeah, well, yeah, because he's got a new show with Daryl Cooper now, and I love Daryl Cooper's work. Yeah. I picked up on Daryl Cooper several years back when he was starting his what is it, God Socialist, his People's Temple, Jim Jones series.
I don't know
So
that one.
I hopped in an episode or two into that. Somehow he came on my radar, and listened to him from there. So I've been quite aware of Daryl for a while, and thought he just does great work. And seeing him and Scott team up there is.
But has he been?
Daryl Cooper has been to Israel multiple times. That's kind of been covered.
Yeah,
many times.
One thing, like he and Tucker talked about, like Daryl gets a whole bunch of flack for being some type of pro-Hitler, anti-Churchill lunatic. But like if you listen to him on any podcast for 10 minutes, you'll realize he's a very sane human being. And
most people, most people aren't pro-Hitler. That's, if anyone says that about someone, that's kind of a flag, honestly.
Yeah,
I agree. Unless they have, very Nazi things that they post about.
Yeah, if you have a swastika on your forehead, then you're probably pro-Hitler. Or usually these people aren't shy about it.
Or your Grok 3.
Dave, I mean, a lot of this, like Dave's rise to the top kind of came from the whole Ron Paul movement, Ron Paul revolution. And I think a lot of what is happening now can pretty much be attributed to what Ron Paul did back in the mid or late 2000s, early 2010s. And just how many people were affected by what he was saying and what he was running on and what he was and the things that he would say to the public that no one else would.
He was bold and hit everything he says. Try to find a clip of what he's saying that did not age really well. Man is on point. It's insane, honestly, how right he was about.
I bet we could find a clip of him saying something negative about Bitcoin in 2017.
Yeah, but he's 90, so he's excused.
I know.
Yeah, and I think they've turned around a lot on that too.
Yeah,
so.
I think they have too.
That would be the thing I could see, though, him kind of missing or whatever. But that's kind of not his, specific wheelhouse. I can see someone having a blind spot to that.
That's also getting into excessive details whenever.
Yeah.
His whole thing's been
can't be an expert in everything. Yeah.
Yeah, how the Federal Reserve just wrecked everything. Coming up with the right solution is sometimes a matter of opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Knowing what's wrong is different than knowing exactly what we should go to next. Yeah. Do you guys think that there's anything to do with the political climate of things getting kind of pushed further and further into left and right extremes that leaves a lot of people in more of the reasonable middle, looking for an alternative option these days, and
absolutely
more of an audience for libertarian?
Well, I don't know if it's there's the polarization which is driving, but I think it's because centrism has come to mean a business as usual, bomb all this, spend all the money, and everything gets worse for everyone. And I think people are starting to realize that, and so it's back to the old hard tropes, the hard times create strong men sort of thing. That's probably what it takes in order for something to actually happen. What I'm looking at now is, I'm watching what's going on in the UK, where, the conservatives there got so bad that the people said, well, we have to get rid of them finally and go with Labor because they're the only other party that could win. Labor gets in there and they're even worse, right? They are worse. They've had to adopt positions that are classically on a conservative party issue because what they were doing ended up so bad. And not to mention the cover-ups, MPs in parliament there involved in cover-ups of the grooming gang stuff and the immigrant grooming gang stuff and everything else going on there, that it's become kind of an out of control place. And that's why you saw Reform, Nigel Farage's party, take a pretty big gain in their local elections. What was it, 2-3 months ago, whenever that was. And if something doesn't change there, these parties that they have, I think people are there finally at the point of we have to do something different, and there's a solid chance that that ends up being a Prime Minister Nigel Farage in a couple of years.
Heck yeah. Yeah.
So
Zane?
to your question about whether it's like to what extent polarization is playing into this, first of all, it's just so hard to know what the average person thinks because we're just so far removed. Most people are far removed from what the average person is like because they're all in kind of their own community. And I'm not even going to say bubble because I don't think people do it intentionally, but it's like to the extent that people tend to be around people that have similar characteristics to themselves, then to figure out like what are most people thinking, that can be really tough. But also, as Nick said, centrist policies just are so bad. It's endless money printing, endless war. Socialist policies are obviously really bad. Libertarian policies are extreme compared to what we have now. So it's not that I think we're necessarily appealing to people that just want to be moderate. But also, I wonder how much of, libertarians, like how much are libertarians creating the zeitgeist around them and like inducing people to adopt libertarian values? How much are they doing that compared to are they just riding a bigger wave of a cultural shift? Because everybody has seen these graphs of like the huge rightward shift in attitudes and in voting across almost all demographics of people in the last election and in other countries in their recent elections as well. And there's a part of that I think people that really do want to be more conservative in the traditional way that would be understood, when they see that we even elected Trump and he's not even doing what he promised, maybe you would attract some of those people to start listening to you if you were really advocating for a no compromise position of libertarianism. But I wonder, and there's going to be some people that are interested in that, but I do wonder how much of it is just a gut reaction. The woke stuff has gone so overboard. We just want anything that's not that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a good portion of it that was that, but you're seeing, the extremes. I mean, you see Mamdani there getting the victory in New York City for the Democratic nomination for mayor.
Yep.
And I think, it kind of comes back to, the priorities, right? Because at least from the leftward perspective, he's kind of saying the left. He was kind of speaking the left side, kind of, if not America first, at least New York first or something.
Well,
we watched. We watched the clip when they're like, I'm going to go to Israel and I'm going to go to Ukraine. And he's I'm going to stay right here and focus on what matters here and not worry about what's out there. So
that was such an absurd scenario to even like pit a mayor, like someone who's like, not even the president, just the mayor of a city in talking about like, what would you do like overseas in this other country? And like, what are you talking about? Like the whole premise of that question was flawed, but whatever.
Yeah, so you have that coming from, so you see a little bit of a rise on that from the left side, I think, and sort of their version of it. And you've got to start seeing I think Trump, at least in the way he campaigned, was sort of the rightward, sort of the rightward anchor of that. Now, in practice, he's ended up quite centrist and kind of carrying on business as usual.
He's very much carrying on business as usual. He's sending more weapons to Ukraine. So
no matter who you vote for, you get John McCain. But
yep, 100%.
That's at least it's designed to do this. I don't think, honestly, I think the choice in who you vote for president is mostly, I really think, an illusion.
Yeah, well,
I agree.
But then at least he's finally like struck a chord with his base that it has a lot of them peeling off. You've got some either defending it or going, well, if you break over one thing, but it's not one thing because, a lot of the base doesn't want to be involved in whatever war Israel wants us involved with.
Correct.
Yet we go ahead and we bomb Iran. We wanted to see the end of supporting the Ukraine war and find peace there. He promised, and day one it was going to be solved. Well, now he's shipping more weapons there, and then on top of that, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. You've got, you appoint the FBI director and assistant FBI director.
We're going to get to Epstein here in a little while.
Okay, yeah, but you ended up with them. They ended up saying the whole time, on podcasts, we've got this, we've got that. We know it's there. We're going to come out with it. They do the whole media show. Look at our binders, and then it's all of a sudden, oh, nothing there, nothing to see there, and everyone's going, wait a second, why are you? And then I think that comes back to Musk's little, oh, they're not releasing it because Donald Trump's named in it.
I wouldn't be surprised. He was chummy with the guy.
Also, it would make sense if he was. A lot of people were like, well, if he was, the Democrats would have released it when Biden was in office. But it just means in my eyes, they got more Democrats too. So they can't release it when
exactly. Thank you.
We knew that
seeing that it has both sides by the balls. It's an entire system thing. It's not a true red v blue thing.
Right, because we saw. I mean, with that, you saw. We've seen the clips of Donald Trump having spoken about Epstein. They obviously knew each other. We knew that, but we've seen a lot closer ties between Epstein and Bill Clinton.
Bill Gates, the other Bill.
Or Bill Gates. So, you've got for sure more names over there and probably stuff that doesn't need to be coming out because one thing gets out and you can't stop that once the flow opens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Zane, do you have any more input on this topic?
Yes. I mean, I guess it would be kind of weird if Trump was afraid that he was in the files. It would have been kind of strange for all his people to be campaigning on releasing it. But what really sucks about this is that, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino were out there saying all of the things that you would want them to say if they were actually hardliners on this issue. And for even them to get in there and be like, yeah, there's no client list and he killed himself. I mean, this honestly makes me think that their families were probably threatened if they were going to try to release it. To some extent, I feel like this, I'm almost to the point where I think 9/11 might have actually been an inside job.
Oh my God.
And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that for sure, but I'm a lot more open to the possibility that it could be the case because literally every single person knows that there is a client list and that there was something fishy with how Epstein died. Maybe he did kill himself, but it was because he was being threatened or something. So I don't take a strong position on that. But it's so obvious that he had a client list that when this came back into the news, I kind of forgot that anyone even said that there was no client list. I just thought the argument was over, is it going to be released? Is anyone going to be able to get to see it? But I had forgot that it was even a tenable position to say, no, there were no clients. It was just him.
It's a lone act. Ridiculous.
So if a wave of people that I do believe were legitimately trying to get at the truth of this matter could be elected with the mandate that they were and do a 180-degree turn and say, no, nothing to see here. I mean, that indicates the strength of the political machine that it's I don't know how you deal with that. And I've been thinking some more about, how we should think about libertarianism. What's the purpose of the party? How should we go about trying to get the society that we would want to live in?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it starts with, the common criticism of libertarianism is that there is no greater worldview. It has nothing to offer you in terms of the philosophy of how you should live your life. And I know that this has come up on the show before. And at that time, I was like, that's essentially like going to an Italian restaurant and complaining that they don't have any Mexican food. Libertarianism doesn't claim to be a philosophy of your life. It's just a philosophy of government.
I don't know if you've been to Olive Garden lately, but they have ravioli nachos or some bullshit. Like
That's an abomination.
It totally is, yeah.
But my point with that is, I still think that that's true. But I think that what that criticism is really getting at is that actually it's much more important to be talking about the worldview. And then once you have the worldview, everything that you think about politics and the rest has to flow logically from that. Like, to just talk all the time about your philosophy of government and not really anything else, that kind of is a little bit maybe doing things out of order. And so even thinking about it in the way of the left-right dichotomy, and libertarians often like to say, we're neither left nor right, we're libertarian. And I think it's actually, those are two completely different things. You have the left-right spectrum of kind of your ends, how you would like society to be, like what are your ultimate values. And then libertarianism is essentially a tool for analyzing policies. You can say, given that these are the goals you want to achieve, will this policy work or will it not work? And I would say libertarianism is a very accurate tool for assessing whether policies will or not work and how to make people more prosperous. But there is a reason why both left-wingers and right-wingers can both have libertarian politics. They can agree on tools and not agree on the direction that they want to go with it. So for libertarians to deny that the left-right spectrum is a thing independent of libertarianism, I think is a mistake. And I think it prevents people from recognizing the Libertarian Party for what it really is, which is an alliance of convenience. Like like I've really stopped shying away from just out and out describing myself as a right-wing libertarian, because the way that I want society to end up is people living according to values that people would consider to be quite traditional. Whereas a lot of people that would be described as left-wing libertarians don't really want that. They, a lot of them would subscribe to kind of small L liberalism, to the extent that kind of is a substitute worldview. And there obviously are a lot of parts of liberalism that if you just focus on like classical economic liberalism, then I think that is also a tool. But there is kind of a philosophy of liberalism where it's like, yeah, people are born a blank slate. Everybody is equal in all of the most important characteristics. We can have a lot of cultures that just live on top of each other and everything will work out great. People should be able to just live how they want, to live their truth, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I'm not trying to give a purposefully uncharitable summary of that worldview, but it's hard not to, because I think that it's just so utterly failed to provide people any meaning. And so...
No, you're kind of right on that. Because I went on a long diatribe and wrote like half a book in one of the Twitter group chats with Grumpy a week or so ago. And, part of that came down to, I agree, the left-right kind of exists. The left-right spectrum exists. It's not clean because there's multiple left-right spectrums, right? You can talk economically, you can talk the authoritarian, the libertarian sort of left-right spectrum, and then you can kind of talk this more general cultural left-right, which doesn't always align with the economic, although they somewhat correlate. But what you have is sort of on the left side of the libertarian spectrum is what I would say the universalists, the ones who are like everyone everywhere except everything, and that's how success comes. And then on to the right, you have sort of the property rights, exclusionary, I guess, sort of way of saying it, getting kind of into the Hoppe stuff here, where it's like, hey, look, like you guys go over there and do your stuff, and I'm going to go over here. And, I don't want to be associated with you, which, is completely your right as a libertarian to, associate or disassociate with anyone that you expect, right? So if someone's not living within your values, you say, look, I don't want to live in a community with you guys. And the universalist side is no, everyone will be so much happier whenever everyone just accepts all these same values that we're going to force it on, and it's always, it's quite often all coming from the left side, the trans side, the this side, that side. It's always saying, no, you've got to always have this stuff, the pride parades and this, and it's just great. And it's like, yeah, a lot of people are like, a lot of the libertarian side has always just been like, look, people can do what they want on their property. Like, you're over here, I want to be over here, just like doing my thing, and not really, associated on all this, or the primitivism of transhuman spectrum that always kind of
one day
ends up
you have a whole
striking moderate
pride.
Well, because the classic boomer libertarian refrain, I don't care what you do in your bedroom, I don't care what you do on your own property. It's not that I would deny that. It's that the way that that's phrased is actually not true, or should not be true if you're a Christian, because there are a lot of what
you care a lot.
Well, because if you are a Christian, that means there are lots of things that people do you think are wrong and bad and immoral. But that doesn't mean that the correct solution to that is to use the force of government to try to prevent it, because that leads to really bad outcomes. But it's like, if you care about the salvation of your neighbors, then you actually do care. So to just say the sentence, I don't care what you do in your own bedroom, actually is not the case.
Like the difference between caring what happens in a foreign government and sending billions of dollars. It's not that you don't care per se, but that you're electing not to intervene in a government level. Like the separation again in morals or ethics and in government. But
that can all come down to, private agreements on things, right? So if you're forced to live in a neighborhood, and if you live in a neighborhood and anyone comes in, moves in, you're living there, everyone's happy, house goes up for sale, someone buys it, and now they're playing music, blasting music outside at 3 in the morning music? On weeknights. I don't know, whatever you think is really terrible. Taylor Swift blasting it at 3 in the morning that you can't sleep. That's not, I do kind of care and that's, saying, yeah, you can do whatever. As Zane's saying, there is that doesn't sit right with everyone. Like, oh, so someone can just do that over on their property all the time, and that disrupts me over here, and that's a misalignment of values. It doesn't have to be a government thing; it's a governance thing. That's why it always comes back to the covenant community concept. Like, all right, we're going to agree to these rules, and that's how that's how it's going to live. And if you don't want to agree to the rules, then sorry, you can't live here.
Yeah. I think it, as it normally does, it progresses and progresses and progresses way beyond what we were promised at any given moment. And so, like, y'all remember when it was just, be tolerant of this, be tolerant of that, basically tolerance was what people were preaching, lefties were preaching. And now it's full on acceptance. Now, if you don't accept every single bit of culture and religion and what have you,
and then you get into the circle of now you're intolerant to intolerance, which is an irony point. Like,
but you become a bigot if you don't accept everything now, whereas before, if you just weren't tolerant, you were considered a bigot. I think people who preach this, you have to accept everyone for who they are,
who they say they are. Let's even go that far.
I don't think they understand that, like, the cultures they want to intermingle with each other some of them have diametrically opposed views on life and like what is good and what is bad and how you should live and how you shouldn't. And so I don't think, obviously being accepting of everybody is not the best way to go about living life.
It's where those things, so you may differ on what you think morally is right or wrong or whatever, but how it affects, like, that person making a choice that impacts themselves is one thing. Like, if you're worried for their sins or soul or whatever the hell, that's a whole different thing than what they're doing impacting you and your life or your family or whatever. And this is so the problem is where when government steps in, it starts to impact everybody. Now you have like laws that are blanket laws that impact everybody and things like that. And it's not just the same as like Zane was saying, like you may care in the sense of what someone does or whatever, but you may also be friends with this person. Like you might just be like, oh, I fear for you or something like that. But like whatever you're doing doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect my family. It doesn't affect my wallet. It doesn't affect my whatever. But when you get government that's starting to step in and do things, that's where it starts to affect everybody. And this is where I start to have opinions, is when government starts to exert leverage over all people, over a handful of things. Like,
Zach commented, well, not everything. You don't have to accept Christians or anything on the right. Well, that's true. No one's screaming at you in the streets to, you have to accept people wearing guns on their hips everywhere. It is. I don't know. Zane, do you have any final words on this topic before we move on to the next?
Yeah, so the reason I started down this tangent was because I'm trying to think, what could we do that would actually cause a cultural change that would put people in a position to maybe be less willing to just go along with whatever the government is up to. And I'm not actually convinced that the solution is for everyone to just start doing even more libertarian activism. Like, I have to admit, I actually don't really like doing libertarian activism that much. And there are probably a lot of people that wish that I did a lot more of it than I currently do.
Is this a euphemism for drugs, Zane? Libertarian activism?
No, it's like going and doing tabling, going and passing out flyers, doing
libertarian
work,
right? Spreading the word of libertarian God.
It's like people have been doing this, and this is especially in the LP, people have been doing this for decades, and what has it got them? Mostly a whole lot of nothing. So I actually don't think that we should necessarily be encouraging everyone who agree with us to go out and do loads of activism on a population that's not ready for it. I think that maybe people should just go out and live lives that reflect the kind of society that they would want to be a part of. And then we can have the people like Dave Smith, Scott Horton, the people that really are gifted, talented communicators and have a burning desire that that's what they want to do. We can have those people out there. And then there's a great Ron Paul quote, which is, nothing is so unstoppable as an idea whose time has come. And we have no idea when an idea's time has come. Lots of times in the past, I think people have thought it's time for this idea now, and then it really wasn't. But I think all we can do maybe is have the people out there spreading the message in whichever way they feel is appropriate. And then when the idea's time has come, we will be out there.
Dude, that is completely correct. I agree with you 100%. The first 3 years that I started getting political and started becoming part of the LP, I was super stoked to go table events and do all these things to help spread liberty. Man, no one wants to hear it. No one wants to hear it. No one is open to the idea. The number of people that you would talk to that would actually entertain the insane things that you were saying, the percentage of people that would actually accept it would be so slim that it's gotten us to the point where we are today in libertarianism, where we make up less than 1%.
So I was going to say, it reminds me of the Jehovah's Witness, where they knock on the door and you're like, who does this work for? But their numbers are solid. I don't know. It must work on somebody. The only time I've done
that's better because you're offering them eternal salvation. We're offering them nothing except leave me alone.
Well, that's the part that's hard. That's the hard part to sell, because that's the way it's always sold, and it's never marketed in the direction of how this is better for you, what this gets you. Because right now, basically people see two choices, because between those two choices, they at least get something. Because or at least they have a chance of getting something, right? If I vote for my team and my team wins, at least I get something I like. Or
at least I don't get your team winning.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we're out
sides.
here and you're trying to talk broader principles and, leave people alone and, this and that. And it doesn't resonate because it's not a marketable, it's not being done in a marketable way. Are there ways to do it? Yes. But the very autistic way of doing it, where we learn economics and we learn this and we learn that and we read man, economy and state with power and markets and human action. That doesn't work for most people.
No,
There's
all
like
of
a
you are gonna say.
casino that's split in half, and you've got like the
was
left and
waiting
the
for-
right, and you've got like the put all your money on black, or you got the roulette table over here, and there's like the hope and the chance, and it's like the same dopamine triggers like as gambling. And then you've got this one sad man that's like, I don't know, buy Bitcoin in the middle, and like that we're the boring, like just 1-to-1 right now, just like buy gold, buy Bitcoin, I don't know. And then
In the roulette analogy, we're the zero.
Zane, what are you about to say?
Oh, one more quick thing, then I promise I'll be done. But it's like to my last point. It's like a couple of days ago, one evening I went over to a friend of mine's house from church, and he had a group together that was like working on stained glass to put in one of the windows of the church. And it's like when I left, not only was that way more fun than anything that I do for the LP, but it's like I had this feeling. I feel like I just did way more to make society better than had I just stood on a corner handing out flyers, even though all I did was like cut some piece of the glass out. And I can't really explain.
Work for the never mind.
I can't believe you didn't come back at me for the shot I took at you there.
Well, we can.
He wasn't paying
I actually have something about human action to say for topic number 3, but
we'll get
Point
there.
proven.
For that.
All right, let's move on to the next topic.
My only follow-up was just going to be that I'm very excited for the 9/11 show after Zane has admitted being more open. Now I feel like now is the time. I just wanted to throw that out there before we moved on. But,
There we go. Love it.
I'm excited.
All right, here's our next topic. Here's a clip from Sean Ryan's podcast.
You look at Elon Musk, he seems like insane and chaotic from the outside. Why does he have the boring company? That doesn't make any sense. He's drilling all these tunnels underground. Like, why would he do that? Well, if he wants to go to Mars, humans aren't going to live on the surface of Mars. They're going to live underground. So you're going to have to build massive tunnel complexes underground. Well, why does he have a solar company? He's going to have to be pretty good at building power plants, right? So why don't you build large solar fields? Because there's no real estate problems on Mars. So you can build like a 5-mile solar field on Mars if you wanted to. Why does he have all these Tesla bots? You're not going to have 5 million humans show up overnight, but you can ship millions of robots ahead of time and use them as your labor force to help build up everything, and they don't need atmosphere or any of these other things. Why does he have an AI company? Well, you need some sort of intelligence to coordinate and run and terraform the planet. Why does he need a battery powered car company? Because you're not going to be running internal combustion and there's no fossil fuels to consume on Mars, so you need battery powered cars to be able to drive them around. It's actually coherent. He probably wrote it all down while high and drunk, and he's like, this makes so much sense. I'm so smart.
It really makes you think where all his illegitimate kids come into the equation.
That's one of the more intelligent things I've ever heard Charles Hodgkinson say.
Right?
Because usually that dude's spinning a load of bullshit. But
Yeah.
that's
That
one of the
one
more
was the-
coherent things.
That was insanely coherent. That made me rethink all his crazy companies.
It's coherent in a way,
Okay.
but I don't think it's the way. I really don't think we're going to Mars. I don't think he's going to be drilling tunnels on Mars. I don't think that the solar panels have to do with Mars. Like, I think it has to do with government contracts right fucking now. And like that you're selling solar panels to a government that's afraid and pandering to the climate change thing. And I think the boring company thing, I honestly think we have a deep underground labyrinth of tunnels in this country that you wouldn't even believe. Like that was that? Oh no, I'm not going to get into that. But even without getting into that shit, but I'm not saying yay or nay to that. Just without even going there, just like the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases, and the different connecting tunnels and things like that. And like I really think that there's more underground. And this ties into the Open Skies Treaty and everything, like back in the 80s or whatever, when they were like, yeah, sure, like you can, spy on us with your satellites. We don't care. It's because we were starting to shift everything, all the major operations, like into mountains and underground and all this shit. And I think the Boring Company has more to do right now with military shit and like having a place to go and building these different things, like for emergencies, like when, whatever.
I do think you could be right. I mean, I think that's a definite possibility. I do think, however, that Musk quit on Trump and basically made it very clear that he didn't give a crap about the government subsidies that Tesla's getting.
I honestly, this is all theater to me, man. I'm not even shocked by any of this and all that. Like, I really just don't care about him and the Trump thing. And
I don't care about the Trump thing. What I do, I think I'm a huge fan of Elon Musk. Like, I'm not saying he is.
I do not trust
libertarian
Elon Musk at all.
Look, I don't.
You can be a fan without
anybody.
trusting him.
I don't trust anybody in power or anybody that's that wealthy. But that does
Or
not
someone they
mean
have
he
in
has
power
not
with.
developed some pretty sick tech.
Yeah,
some
sure.
cool companies that could potentially do exactly what the guy in this video was talking about.
I mean,
Sure.
SpaceX is itself is wild. I mean, the fact that he's really the first successful commercial, private sector space company, and he got the cost per launch, per kilogram down to insane amounts. And when Starship is completely
The concept of
proven
reusing
out,
parts,
yeah, which apparently when you watch some stuff, you look back on it, and I've seen engineers from the from Boeing and all the other companies that worked on those, Lockheed, Raytheon, whatever, say, oh yeah, we had that idea, but we're on a cost plus contract, so it makes no sense for us to try to save money because we get more money if they spend more money.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So
No, this is all
he kind
true.
of, but he at least that company is incredibly wild, and yeah, he has those government contracts, and he's not going to lose it because ULA, the Boeing and whatever other company it was, proved that they can't make a rocket that puts humans in space. They failed on their first attempt. They failed that, and he's the only rocket provider in the U.S. capable of taking astronauts to low Earth orbit currently.
Yeah. I mean, Alden, I agree with you that you like not trusting these people. Like, I don't think it's a good idea to put your faith in people. I mean, Ben Shapiro tried to whine about how people didn't put their faith in Donald Trump with the whole Iran Israel thing. It's wild that people put their faith so heavily in some of these folks. I just find it extremely interesting, like, that all of his companies could be used for very specific things that would help grow a colony on Mars, which he talks about Mars nonstop all the freaking time.
Very specific things that are required.
But it could be.
You need power. You need that labor, because 5 people there aren't going to be able to do it. You need the power of the systems. You need the transportation. You need the habitation. I mean, these aren't small things. Like, these are very, very big things.
I'm just throwing out that it could be pardon the pun, but a red herring motivation, as far as, like, it could be cohesive on paper for that. It also could work to other ends, and I think that it is and does. Like, but
100%, man, for sure. There are people whining about Grok today about how it's gone off the rails in a bad direction, and we need it's designed for something good, but it can be used for bad. And
I mean, it did call
that's
itself
everything. That's a
Mecha
machete.
Hitler.
That's a cigarette. That's it. It doesn't
literally
any fucking.
I mean, Grok did start calling himself Mecha Hitler. So
yeah.
Oh well, that is a flavorful way of being used for the other side of things. But
Well, fortunately, Grok has no power. So, Zane, do you want to weigh on any of this?
My gut assessment of Elon Musk is that he's too autistic to be a lizard person.
Or maybe
Also-
all lizard people are autistic.
yeah.
He's too far out front to be a lizard person too. There's 2 flavors of lizard people: the type you never see and the type that inhabit the government, and he's doesn't really fit either of those.
Also, if you were just trying to milk government contracts for all it's worth, there's no need to come up with a cover story about how you want to go to Mars. Everyone else been doing it fine for the past century without any pretensions of going to Mars.
Yeah, Lockheed and Raytheon do it without that. They're just like, hey, we're going to do stuff. It's going to be expensive, and you're going to give us a shit ton of money because we're the only ones who are going to do it.
That's interesting, but maybe they're only after money. Like in Alden's defense, like I think if you were after power, you'd be doing more shady things behind the scenes that wouldn't just involve massive government contracts for war.
Do you guys know about Werner von Braun's book that he wrote about the man that went to Mars and his name was Elon?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to say any more about that. But
Zane, I see Zane's face. Look at Zane's face right now. He's going, what is this conspiracy bullshit?
I'm not.
As it was
throwing a
foretold.
tidbit, you know.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting. I'd never thought about all his companies like being a big conglomerate with the possibility of one singular focus. So that was just interesting to me that somebody put that all together and like really explained it in a way that was like, oh, you know, in a certain world that would make sense. And I don't know if we're in that world, but it is.
And by a certain world, you mean Mars.
in another red world, that would make sense. Yeah,
exactly.
But
Alden, do you have one last thing to say on this?
No, it's just I'm always here to just poo on things, I guess.
I mean, it's funny, Alden.
Job.
Normally, you're here to run with things. It's you have like a very specific Zane tendency with certain things.
Yeah,
and I haven't been able to quite pinpoint it yet because you believe in a bunch of these, you know, conspiracies that I believe as well. I haven't done as much research on a lot of them, so I'm not, you know, fully immersed in them. But yeah, it's interesting the times that you do poo-poo something. I
it's
find
usually because I'm like, I can see the level that someone's calling something out as like the more obvious level to me, and I'm like already thought past it, and I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm like kind of like behind the curtains a little bit, and I'm like, I'm not saying that's not a thing. I'm saying don't get stuck on that. Don't get hung up on.
I think I realized what it is. It's not conspiracy enough.
Right. Yeah.
All right. We're going to move on.
I am not fucking drunk.
Well, 19th are blue.
Every pretty girl deserves to go to a ball.
This is everything about it's a clam. I love it.
I gotta be honest with you, I feel like I'm a little bit too drunk to stand up.
On Wiedersehen, asshole.
I'm drunk right now.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Drunkard of the Week, where we play a video of someone doing or saying something that can only be explained if they're drunk, but they're not. You can nominate somebody each week via our Discord channel, which you can join via the Dollar Media Club on our website, peacefulsea.network, or you can tag us on X at Liberty Libation with your nomination. It must be a video. We've had a lot of submissions with just text. We need video because that's what makes it funny. So here you go. Enjoy.
If it is text, go use AI to create a scene that reads it out or something.
There you go. Yeah, go make a video.
We will not play it if you do that.
Yeah, Zane. Okay, how do
You
I
don't make that decision, Zane. That's Jake's decision.
All right, Zane's muted. He can't offer his opinion on that anymore. He unmuted himself. I hate this. I hate StreamYard so much. Okay, here we go.
Myself, I never thought that I would be offering an apology to Jeffrey Epstein. I think of all the times I've maligned that guy, all the times I've accused him of crimes, of blackmailing people, of trafficking children to powerful figures around the world on behalf of global intel services. And then I learned yesterday from Attorney General Pam Bondi that's totally untrue.
Yes, yeah.
The guy killed himself after 36 days in prison for no reason. He was a billionaire. Mm-hmm. He had no clients. He'd done nothing wrong other than get like naughty massages 20 years before. And the guy killed himself, another pointless death. And then his best friend, former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, doing 20 years in prison for no crime. There are no victims.
Yes, it's a victimless crime. They're obviously persecuted by the state.
Yes.
They're political prisoners, really. It's The Hague should come in and do an investigation, or we're watching one of the most systematic government cover-ups of all time.
We want to be free to do what we want to do. Yeah. We want to get loaded. Yeah. And we want to have a good time.
Tucker Carlson is our drunkard of the week, hero version. Yeah. I think he's maybe the first one to be our drunkard more than once.
I don't know. The
possible?
more
I don't
the
know.
more I
feel like-
listen to Tucker, the more I just love everything he's doing.
I like these days, Tucker. Yeah.
Yes. The
He's
more
made a
he's
big
just out there
turnaround.
doing his thing, the more it's like, man, he gets it, I guess.
I've been appreciating what he's been up to recently here. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Wait. Did things change for me just now? Do
Yes.
I sound better all of a sudden?
Yes.
What did you do?
I turned off my camera.
Yeah, apparently that was it. Was your camera mic
I'm
on?
using. No.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
now using. Wait a second. Was it? No. Oh my gosh! No, I'm so perplexed now.
Was the microphone that you keep in your butthole on? Why would you use that one?
Yeah, well, that one just felt better. Thank you, some quack. So, gosh, okay. So I was annoying the crap out of some quack. That's my bad. Okay, well, sweet. I'll just
Why we
stay
can
on
let
this,
you talk this episode.
I'll just stay on this crappy, stupid FaceTime camera that shows
Perfect.
the entire construction site behind me.
Yes.
All
Is that a
right.
beer keg back there? What's back there?
Radiant barrier.
Oh, okay. I wish it were a beer keg.
Going in the walls and the ceiling. No, the only alcohol I have is two of these cans.
That's sad.
Anyway, I have no idea what we just talked about because I was preoccupied. So what were we talking about?
We're on the Jeffrey Epstein
It was
stuff. So I've got a
this
couple
thing.
comments which are, there's a lot to think about here because this relates to a little bit of an email that came through. Someone in the Mises caucus sent an email saying like, I'm out. There's too much conspiracy theory stuff. I saw an email about the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, and I'm here for liberty. I was here for liberty, not conspiracy theories. And I thought seeing that, I'm like, that goes way past, like, that's missing a whole lot of what's going on here. Because, Jeffrey Epstein, I was aware of him back before the second arrest that ended in his death. I remember I was living in Texas at the time, and one of the guys I worked with dabbled in the conspiracy stuff, and I went, hey, watch this. He's going to end up dead before there's ever a trial the day he got arrested. And guess what? I was right because it was that predictable.
Dead
But,
or fake dead.
Well, regardless, the story is he's dead. So, the
Zach
fact
is starting
is,
the conspiracy caucus, by the way.
I'm in. The fact is, what you're looking at here is, the most probably. I think Sagar there kind of said it right that you're looking at kind of this biggest cover-up sort of thing because you've got a guy who's tied in with multiple presidents, the royalty in the UK, this class of billionaires, Mossad, Israel. I mean, you look at Ghislaine Maxwell's
Mossad and CIA.
Yeah, well, so Maxwell's father, billionaire media mogul, book publisher, whatever, Robert Maxwell, was very, very tied into Mossad.
Mm-hmm.
And then he ended up dead he ended up going overboard on his yacht out of nowhere and disappearing.
These railings get slippery, man.
So, there's a lot that goes with his death. He just one day, over the edge and no one ever heard from him again. So that's there's a whole lot of ties there. And then all of a sudden you had Kash Patel and Dan Bongino out there the entire time before they were even being considered that, saying, hey, there's something here. There's something here. They get the position, and all of a sudden that confidence that they had, the confidence they had when they were asserting that stuff. And when they started out saying, hey, we've got this, we've got that, I bet they've got this, they've got that, we're gonna expose this, and all of a sudden nope, there's nothing else, nothing to see. And you can see that the change in their demeanor when they're saying that, it was much more like, just believe me, I'm telling you the truth. It was more panicked. It was a little bit more unsettling. Like, if you strap those guys to a lie detector, they would fail if they were asked those questions. And it's funny because I just saw a tweet come through a couple minutes ago from what's his name? Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin. Quote tweeting a Newswire post that said, Donald Trump said Epstein files could destroy people, quoting Bill O'Reilly. And Carl Benjamin's Sargon of Akkad in his quote tweet said, "That's the point, Mr. Trump," and that is the point. Is that, yeah, there's people here who are tied into some dirty, dangerous, some dirty stuff, some really bad stuff here, and yeah, we kind of want to know who's involved in this trafficking, in this underage stuff, this obviously compromise, this operation to compromise American politicians.
Oh, they're
American people like that. I have to believe that that's what that is.
The only thing I would push back on this is not any detail about this. It's just that this is the biggest cover-up. I just feel like this is the most public cover-up, like that we're in recent years that we've been facing.
I don't remember ever coming. I mean, not that I would have been aware of something being a cover-up for that long, because it's not like I've been around for that long as compared to you guys. But
yeah, we're old.
Yeah, but it is striking how all the attempted cover-up is them saying we're not releasing anything. Like, they're not. Nobody thinks, yep, Epstein killed himself and there's no client list. Like, I don't know how many people are still even listening to Ben Shapiro or any.
Is Ben seriously saying the mainstream story? Like, he's really believes that that's what's going on?
Yes.
See,
but my point is, aside from that, it's like they're not even. There's no even attempt at covering it up in a way to make people believe it. All the cover-up is we're not telling you.
Right, there's no document dump that goes, look, here's new documents. It shows for sure nothing happened. They're not dumping anything there. They're just like, yep, everything you have is everything you need. I mean, they did dump that video, and then it was like, why is that video missing a minute? And they're like, oh, well, it does that every day at that time.
Yeah, the explanation is so against how electronics work. I don't know. I couldn't believe
we just coded that in for fun. That's the ghost minute of the day. We just thought that was hilarious.
I kind of actually believe that that's either true or it's a red herring to get everybody off on the wrong track because of how obvious it would be if you imagine trying to coordinate the murder to happen at exactly 11:59 because you knew 5 years later when you were going to release the tape that you were going to know to release to take out that exact 1 minute. So I don't really put too much.
Did they share other days that have exactly that minute out?
She said they're going to, and they're going to compile that data, which also
how easy it is to just make a video file where you clip out a minute. This is not proof to me.
None of that's proof. And also, if there's so many ways to make that,
we also got this so late.
Yeah. There's just a lot of ways where you could make that timestamp. You can manipulate the timestamp. It doesn't matter.
No, this is insane. This is like if today they were like, oh, Pentagon footage of the 9/11, the plane fucking hit, and you're like, with the AI fucking now and whatever, you're like, where was this before? Like, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a shit if they fucking release some shit today that was about the fucking any footage of the 9/11 or whatever. Like,
right.
We do know they have that footage.
Time. Yeah, well, sure, but
the FBI went through and found every camera pointing at the Pentagon there and went and got it.
The FBI went to the gas stations and shit, and yeah, of course.
Okay. We're gonna save this for the 9/11 episode.
No. This is still relevant to the meddling when it comes to surveillance tapes and things like that. Fair. And if you release something months or years or decades, in this case, later, then it's just I don't care. Like,
fair enough.
Had so much time to tamper with it, I don't care.
I don't even know how much it's even worth dwelling on how obviously unbelievable it is because we're already to the point where no one believes it. Like, you don't have to spend any time convincing people not to believe it because they already don't. It's, as I said, the most low effort cover up we've ever had. Kind of like how when we were just, almost at war with Iran a few weeks ago, it was the most low effort propaganda campaign to get us in the war they've ever done. Like, to get us into the Iraq war, they had to spend almost a year propagandizing the American people into war to make them, get the American people on their side. This time, they spend 2 days. Nobody falls for it. They do it anyway. So it's like, I don't know if they think that it's just not possible to propagandize people anymore, so it's not worth it, or they just think they're so powerful.
We're already pre-propagandized.
Getting people. getting people on their side, but it's like they really don't care about public opinion, it would seem, at all.
I agree.
You're right. And we on this show, I said it. I'm sure other people said it and agreed with me, but we're never going to get the Epstein client list. We're never going to get any part of the file that's actually real.
No.
It was either destroyed a long time ago or it's buried so deep that it's just never going to happen. And people expecting us to get it is stupid, but them saying that there isn't one is stupider.
This will kind of put my theory to the test of differentiating real conspiracies from not real ones, because I've always maintained that if a conspiracy is real, then eventually people will find out about it. And this was going to be one of my arguments when the 9/11 episode was originally going to be.
What do you mean by people?
Because like the Gulf of Tonkin, where it's like there was a fake attack on a U.S. battleship to get us into Vietnam.
Yeah.
You know, the real conspiracy. But within a couple of years, the information came out about it being fake, like that the actual evidence, and it became widely accepted eventually.
Or like Operation Northwoods with Cuba and the whole CIA's pitch to JFK about loading a fucking plane with explosives and then saying that Cuba attacked it, and it was another false flag pitch that he declined and then was assassinated after. But yeah.
Well, so my point with that is that if there is a client list, I think that it may be in 10 or 20 years, but I think we will probably eventually find out.
No, we're not going to get this list because in 20 years, a lot of the people on that list will still be alive, and those are the people protecting this list.
I agree. I don't
think
just like we're never getting the JFK files, we're not going to get these files either.
No. You're going to get the
next week.
I can't believe it's not butter version of things like this.
So next week when Zane's not here, to spare him from more conspiracy talk, we're going to talk about at least 2 conspiracies that
which
that
ones?
We'll tweet something out this week about it, and I'll put it in the Discord as well.
You better tell me. I don't have a Twitter, or if I do, I don't use it. So
no, we're going to put it in the Discord and we're going to put it out on
okay, because I need to.
And one of them involves Bill Clinton, so that's and just the Clintons in general. But
when he was the governor of Arkansas smuggling in cocaine, or when he was president,
all of the Arkansas stuff.
Pick a thing.
All right, we're gonna move on to the next topic. Actually, hang on. Before we do, to round out the Jeffrey Epstein talk, let's go ahead and play this catchy little ditty. Catchy little tune, not ditty.
Ditty.
By I think Jesse Wells.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got your bucket list, your list of things to do. You got a list of all your wishes. That's a wish list, dude. You got your Amazon and Santa Claus and Tooth Fairy too. But I know a list that don't exist, and buddy, so do you. It's the Epstein list. It's a mystery list, but the twist is a myth of a list that we all just missed. Be an optimist, not a pessimist. If you wish to persist, it's probably best to forget that list. Now, what were we talking about? I don't remember, but I can sleep a lot better at night. Yeah, life can just go along. Knowing there's 10,000 hours of sunshine and flowers and nobody doing a damn thing wrong. Hear no, see no damn Bongino cash to tell. Well, I wouldn't want to be a sweating man with bulging eyes to tell me them fellas ain't compromised. Any implicated dude will tell you. Anybody on the big list knows just how far the folks in charge will go to keep the status quo. So when the war bell rings, the song that they'll sing is a song that we well know. I-oh. So it's off to war I go. Well, they said we're gonna fix it, but now they're all complicit. They-oh. So it's off to war we go. In the pour off the war, what else are we for? They-oh.
So if you don't follow him, highly recommend. He does some great little tunes like that, as well as some good just country kind of folk music. Great dude. And he always does them just out in the woods. It's awesome.
And quickly, apparently.
very quickly. Yeah, he's very good at writing
He's
songs.
industrious, man.
Yeah, he is. All right, Zach, go ahead and put up the next. Here we go. Go ahead and hit play on this.
Europe will fall in the next 100 years. I don't think the world is overpopulated. I think we're underpopulated. In order for civilization to maintain itself, it must have a fertility rate of 2.11 kids per woman. Historically, no culture has ever reversed a 1.9 fertility rate. Okay, historically, and a rate of 1.3 is mathematically impossible to reverse. Where are we right now in Europe? France, 1.8. England, 1.6. Greece, 1.3. Dead. Germany, 1.3. Dead. Italy, 1.2. Dead. Spain, 1.1. Now, let's do a little calculation here. What is the fertility rate, the Islamic fertility rate in France? 8.1. In large French cities, 45% of children under the age of 20 are Islamic. At this rate, in 40 years, France could become an Islamic republic. The world as we know it is just changing in a way that I feel is irreversible, and we're gonna see the outcome of that eventually.
So I know Zane has something prepared in his brain. Do you want to go first, Zane, or do you want us to chat about it first?
How did you know?
Why don't you take it, Zane? You take it, and then we'll comment on the things you talk about.
Right. So I hadn't actually heard that the fertility rate of 1.3 being mathematically impossible to overcome. I'm not sure how they arrived at that conclusion. I'd have to look into that.
Couldn't you just fuck a lot, you know?
No comment. I'll have to run the numbers on that and get back to you.
Yeah, run the numbers, yeah.
But this is a really big problem, obviously. And as I guess I hinted earlier in the episode, my summer project is to read Human Action, and I am now most of the way through. And boy, it's been a rollicking ride for sure. But there is a really interesting part in it where Ludwig von Mises says that the adoption of birth control is one of the hallmarks of an advanced capitalist society. And if a society does not adopt birth control, then they're just backwards. I'm like, whoa, Mises, what are you saying? And I mean, I guess because he's almost a little bit, he's kind of been influenced by Thomas Malthus in a sense, where Mises was a little concerned where if you just reproduce with no limit up until the biological point of literally not having enough food, then that would reduce your standard of living. So I mean, I guess that's not the craziest thing to say, that maybe you shouldn't have 20 kids just because it's biologically possible for you to do that. But in this case, we're not talking about people not having 20 kids. We're talking about people not having 2 kids. And there does just seem to be something about reaching a certain stage of economic development where I've heard people make this point that you just, for some reason, stop having kids. And that seems counterintuitive, because it would seem like if you're at a high level of development, then that would make you feel like you're more free to have kids. But it doesn't make you feel more free to have kids. You actually start having less kids. And there might be an ideological component to it, liberalism, making people not really care as much about their progeny and focusing more on just what they would like to do at that time. But even in places like Russia, where they're not as liberal of a society, people still think of Russia as, I mean, obviously they were communists for a long time, but that's different from social liberalism.
Their population
having the same exact problem, and a bunch of other countries are having this problem as well. And it's not that they're so socially liberal, but it is that they are all relatively advanced economies. And the excuse that people sometimes put forward for why people aren't having as many kids is the financial uncertainty, where people feel like they are not wealthy enough or not economically secure enough to have kids, which is just the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard if you've thought about it, because we are the wealthiest society. that's ever existed. Like the median person now is way better off than they've ever been before. And yet Americans in the 1850s and 1950s weren't having a problem having kids and raising a family. And it's all of a sudden now where people feel like they're poor, even though they're actually way wealthier, that they feel like, oh, I can't afford kids. I think part of it might be now there's 1,000 things that everybody knows that they could spend their money on. Like,
and I don't have a farm
all these
for my kids to work on, you know.
Right. I mean, there is the need for child labor has definitely decreased since then. But there's also like 1,000 different things everyone knows that they could buy, 1,000 different trips that they know that they could go on.
It's also 1,000 different methods for contraception that didn't exist 100 years ago.
They didn't have pulling out back then?
The least reliable one. Yay.
Someone should have talked to them, you know.
So it is a big issue. And then there's also, they got there at the end, kind of the Muslim aspect of this, which I think we're going to continue to see more of, because as they said in that video, their birth rate is enormous. And just, I think that, I mean, there are lots of facets here, which is that the Muslim immigrants to Europe are just so not interested in assimilating at all. And even if you ask them, they really view it more as they are invading with the express purpose of taking it over, rather than feeling any obligation to become French just because they're in France. And I think, you know, even setting that aside, I think Christians need to maybe bone up a little bit on their anti-apologetics, because, okay, I just realized that was kind of a double entendre, which I didn't.
Yeah, bone up, Christian.
All right, Zane says we're retaking Constantinople.
But on their anti-Islam apologetics, because if you look into it, it's literally on the same level of Mormonism in terms of how literally crazy and obviously made up all of it is. Like, if you just look into it a little bit, you will find that it was obviously a religion completely made up by an illiterate man that was really interested in having sex with 9-year-olds. Like, there are so many. Like,
I'm sorry, I'm so distracted by Alden at this moment. You can't get over the bone up.
There is a concept in anti-Islam apologetics called the Islamic dilemma, where multiple places in the Quran, it actually says that the Jews should judge by the Torah, Christians should judge by the gospel, because the Torah and the gospel and the Quran are all inspired documents by God, and each of the groups have, you know, revelation that they can appeal to and use for their own purposes. And it's only later, when Islamic scholars realized that actually the Quran contradicts the Bible in a lot of places, that they have to backpedal and say, oh, well, when it said that, it actually meant it was actually referring to an uncorrupted version of the Bible that is now lost. The problem with that line of argument is that we have the manuscripts of the Bible going all the way back to like within a few decades of when they were originally written. So we know exactly what the Bible in the 7th century,
include, like,
when Muhammad was around, was like.
Hang on, Zane. Hang on. Alden, what was your question?
I'm sorry. I was just asking if that original, because I don't know. This is truly just a question. Does that include like the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Book of Thomas or whatever that they've like found later?
This is a very different discussion that I would love to get into at another time, but I think that would be crazily off topic. My point is, we know what the original version of the Bible is, and we know that we have the same version of it as Muhammad would have had when he was creating Islam in the 7th century. So we know it's not been corrupted since he was around.
There's also just many like basic mistakes in the Quran.
Well,
like, he talks about crucifixion in a time when crucifixion wasn't
a
thing.
And
well, I think part of it was
part
of it was a claim. I think that Jesus wasn't crucified in the Quran.
Yeah,
you know,
Muhammad was illiterate and had never read the Bible, so he had no idea what was in it. And it was only when later Islamic scholars actually did get around to reading the Bible and realized how many contradictions the Quran had with it, that they had to figure out how to deal with it, but they really can't. like if I became convinced that Christianity was false, I would either become like some kind of deist or an agnostic or something. There's absolutely no chance I would ever consider becoming a Muslim because of how obviously false it is.
If that happened, I think you would just join my side and feel the way I do about 9/11. I think that's what would happen.
He'd just become a 9/11 truther, and that'd be his religion.
I think that's it. That's the alternative to Christianity, actually. Yeah.
So you're saying retake Constantinople, Zane?
I would not be opposed.
That's interesting, Zane.
Can't not hear that song now.
I think about that song anytime somebody says those words.
It's immediate.
Yeah.
And unwanted, honestly.
Yeah, Alden, I feel like you'd have the most questions for Zane about anything he just said. Do you have anything other than what you already asked?
What were we talking about? I was laughing too much at the boning joke that I don't know if I was here for most of it.
But. Well, just to comment on the video first, I do think the fact that Muslims in France have an 8.1
that was alarming
birth rate compared to the 1.7 or 1.8 of France.
Yeah.
Like, that's wild. That's crazy. And that is an internal invasion happening right there. And to Zane's point, like there are many that do not care at all to assimilate, and they've made speeches to that end.
We already
public
have cities
speeches
in our country that are doing things to appease, a Muslim population to an extent that I find a little strange, even with was it Minneapolis that was the first city? Yes. Yeah. That's what I just saw recently.
Yeah, it is interesting. And it goes back to what we were talking about when we were talking about libertarianism is like being accepting of all cultures is not necessarily a good thing, because you
accepting truly by the word, like embracing legally and culturally, like in a way, not just like being like, you're fine, you do your thing, but like taking over your own culture now. Like,
yeah. And that's what happens. When a culture, look, if you move to America from another country, you should assimilate in some way, shape, or form, because we have our own culture.
Why come here?
Exactly.
Why come here?
You're coming here you're coming here for the way we live and for the opportunities that
otherwise
America
it's a
can
mission.
offer you.
It's not an immigration. It's
Dude,
a mission.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like if I moved, I mean, God forbid, but if I moved to France,
God forbid. What are you, Ron Swanson?
I would 100% learn French. I would learn their customs, and I would assimilate as much as possible.
Right?
You just have to learn how to wave a white flag. I mean,
it's interesting to watch a flood of people into certain countries, including ours, where the goal is not assimilation, and the goal is not to embrace the culture that you're moving to. It's to plant your culture there and grow from that place.
I wish I'd have sent this video in. I saw this like today, and it was like an Australian guy that was like had moved to Tennessee or something in the South, and he was talking about how he's taking on Southern culture because I chose to live here because I thought this was better. So like, why would I bring an unnecessary amount of intentional baggage here to try to impose on other people? And he was talking about how he was even noticing that people that were moving to the South in the US for like economic reasons and other things like that from like California and New York were like not assimilating very well, even within the country. And it was an interesting point that he was making as an observation as someone from the outside moving to a region of another country, and then watching even within the same country movement, people move and then like have like this hoity-toity weirdness about like moving to an area. It's like, bitch, you came here, like you are now in the South, and like you still have like the fucking nose up or whatever to certain things like culturally or politically or whatever. It's like, then why are you here? I don't know. It's just,
100%, man. And like when I moved to Montana, when we first bought our place and we were starting to talk to people around here, I would tell them I'm from Texas, and even after that, they would very much warn me to not change their state. I feel like Texas and Montana jive pretty well, but
even
just a little bit, even just a little bit of culture difference. They don't, you shouldn't come to a place to change it, like with the purpose of changing everything. Like your presence is going to change things. It's not going to
slowly,
change a state,
and eventually, sure.
Yeah, it might not change a state, but it'll change, the ideas people have in your immediate vicinity. But if you go there with a goal to if I came here with a goal to evangelize Texan values in Montana, I think we would get along about 95% of the time, but the 5% we would not go well for me.
What if you just lived by the example of like open up a barbecue restaurant, and if people like it, they will adopt it. You don't have to have a mission. You just fucking be who you are, and eventually it either catches on or it doesn't, and let it be.
Brian brings up a good point. Go ahead, Nick, and then we'll talk about Brian.
Yeah, so I want to run a little bit of a counterfactual on this, right? So let's look at, probably the most open immigration period, the Industrial Revolution time, Ellis Island, where basically anyone coming in, if you could pass some basic checks, come on in. And we look at a lot of the major cities at that time, being from Pittsburgh, I'll bring that up, right? What you ended up having in Pittsburgh was a city that was really not one city. It was a collection of ethnic neighborhoods, right? There's literally a neighborhood called Polish Hill. You want to guess who lived there?
Was it the Cherokee?
You had Bloomfield, which was the Italians. You had Deutschtown on the north side. That was the Germans. You had up in the Troy Hill, and then you had every ethnic group had their own neighborhood. Every ethnic group, and when you're talking about the Catholic groups, they had their own churches, right? You had the Polish church here, and even though the Italian neighborhood bordered it, they had theirs there. Like, it was very much a high collection of different neighborhoods of people who moved there because that's the people they were familiar with in that neighborhood. And those lines don't really mean a whole lot anymore. Bloomfield, Polish Hill is just a place. It's not overly Polish. It's Bloomfield, anyone who wants there. It's it's kind of like, are we looking at it on too short of a timeline where you see these initial, but in the end you kind of eventually do, whether it's the second, third generation that you get that assimilation, or do you think that the first, second generations aren't interested, and so they're going to raise even further generations to not be interested, and by that point it's going to be that you're going to have the native population overwhelmed. I'm just kind of curious if anyone has a thought to that.
I didn't hear the rest of what you were saying, but I think it does tie in with what Brian was talking about, which is, what about the Free State Project?
What is that?
It's New Hampshire. A bunch of libertarians basically made it their goal to move there and turn it into a libertarian state.
Live free or die.
Yep.
Yeah.
I used to live in New Hampshire, but I was like 5.
Where haven't you lived?
Pretty relevant, actually.
So the thing with the Free State Project is that they actually realize what they're doing, which is essentially all moving there with the express purpose of taking over the state government. Like, they will not beat around the bush and telling you that's what they're trying to do. But I also think there's a difference in that the way the average New Hampshire libertarian lives their life compared to the way your average New Hampshire Democrat lives their life, I think those are clearly much more similar day to day than how the average Frenchman lives their life compared to how the average Muslim Arab lives their life, in terms of how well could you have a society together where everybody might disagree on how to administer the state, but if you're just trying to have people living in the same communities, how well is that going to work? Like, this whole immigration thing in Europe is just absolutely proving what other calamity multiculturalism is, because you're not having one nation composed of different groups that can all get along and all make an effort to adapt to the place that they are. It's multiple nations that are being stacked right on top of each other, causing ethnic conflict.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Because they're incompatible ways of life in a way that a New Hampshire Libertarian and a New Hampshire Democrat and a New Hampshire Republican do not have fundamentally incompatible ways of life.
Bingo. We all. I think we should move on to trivia because we are running way behind.
Yeah,
we've been talking a lot.
I know it's been great so far. We're not going to get to Doomsday Map, which Zane will be happy about. We will talk about that next week.
I'm upset about that. Okay.
We're going to move it to next week. So if you want to hear about the Doomsday Map, we'll get there next week. And I'll.
I don't want to hear about it. I want to tell you about it.
Perfect.
This is where we need to have a subscribers after show.
Yeah. Well, I have a pretty hard out very soon after 8 p.m. So let's get into trivia.
Even more extreme versions than what I saw you guys pitching here. So. Oh,
there we
I have a
go.
new board.
Hey, do you have a new pen?
It's white, not black. I can't hear you.
Your mic's all messed up now, Jake. Now I can hear you.
I can hear the sigh. Yeah.
My mic, I didn't do anything.
Now you're good.
You
were coming through extremely muffled. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
You were coming through muffled for a minute earlier. Wonder why.
It just needed to hear you be exasperated, I guess.
It might be a StreamYard thing tonight, y'all. I think StreamYard's messing with us. All right, Zane, let's not dilly-dally. Let's just get after it.
While you're talking about the rules, I'm going to get another drink. Hold on.
Oh, everyone already knows the rules. We're going right to the categories. Round 1, elements by number. Round 2, dog days. Round 3, off-season deals.
Oh, boy. All right, we do have to wait for Alden to come back. You might as well just talk about the rules momentarily. We might have new listeners, new viewers.
We have 3 rounds of trivia. Round 1, 8 questions. Round 2, 6 questions. Round 3, 4 questions. If you are in the audience, put your answer in the chat. We will take the first non-obvious joke as the audience answer.
And the winner's no longer a loser.
I just grabbed a bottle here. So.
And the winner's no longer a loser, and also Bitcoin just hit 116, everybody.
Ooh.
Yeah, we forgot to mention.
Do you guys think that Bitcoin's going to take a dip here, or is it just on a gradual climb? Not financial.
I think we're going to climb forever.
No dips at all? Never? No downs?
I mean, it'll have little bits of downs, but no, I don't know what it's going to do. But
what, is that a syndrome or anything?
Syndrome of success.
All right, Zane, take it away.
Round 1, elements by number. Very simple. I will give you the number and a short clue, and you will tell me the element.
C. Okay.
F. Question 1. 1 first.
Kevin.
Question 1 and 1. It's very fitting. And
5, 4.
Yep.
3, 2, 1.
Jake.
Hydrogen.
Alden.
Yeah.
Nick.
Hydrogen.
Audience says hydrogen. It is hydrogen.
It is indeed.
Amazing. Okay, good. I always used to get confused between that.
I'm only surprised that Jake got it.
Zane's got to start pulling.
I thought he was going to say
helium or
helium
americium or whatever you want to call it.
Dude, I 100% was going to say helium.
I knew it. Yeah.
Question 2. Balloon filler.
Well, all right. Can we just go? Because
5, 4,
I
3,
just
2, 1.
All right, everyone.
Yeah, helium. Hydrogen becomes helium in a star.
Maybe we shouldn't discuss elements while we're doing a round of elements.
3. All right. Is he going to break the trend or is he going to stick with?
Question 3. 4. Key component of emeralds.
10 seconds.
I don't know the emerald clue bit, so this is
I don't either.
not helpful
2,
in that way.
1.
My birth stone, though.
Jake.
What's that?
I put sulfur.
Alden.
Fuck you. Nitrogen.
Nick.
Calcium.
The audience says nitrogen, but this is beryllium.
I would not have got that.
Me neither.
My cat really wants into my.
Question 4. 5. Borax is named after it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Jake.
Oh.
Dang it. Borium. Boron.
I put boron, but
Boron.
borium might be.
It is boron.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't trust myself.
Hey,
now.
Mitch said borium, so I feel like it's probably borium.
Is it spelled with an H?
No, he misspelled it.
Oh, I was like, what?
So borium is an element, but it's like element. It's the atomic number is in the 90s, and it is spelled with an H because it's named after Niels Bohr.
Niels Bohr. Yeah.
Okay, whatever. I suck. Go.
Question 5. 8. British chemist Joseph Priestley called it dephlogisticated air.
That is not a hint. That's not a hint. That is just garbled nonsense. I don't know who Joseph Priestley is, and I don't know what dephlogisticated air is.
I told you who Joseph Priestley is. He's a British chemist.
Yeah, that's not helpful. Start with somebody else this time. 3, 2, 1.
I have it.
Nitrogen.
I did it. Same thing. I did it again. I was like, I don't care.
I can't see what you wrote.
I didn't write anything.
Right.
Well, the audience is right because the audience says oxygen.
God damn it. Fuck. It's fucking O2. What is dephlogisticated or whatever the flatulated word?
I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. But that's what
you're supposed to be smart.
I was not good at chemistry.
Me neither. That was the one science I sucked at. All right, go.
Question 6. 9. Beware if this ends up in your drinking water.
What do you mean by beware?
Beware. Two, 1. You better write something, Alden.
Jake.
I mean, obviously it's fluoride.
I mean, that's a metal. That's way too high. I don't know, man. Sulfur. I don't know.
Nick.
Yeah, I said sulfur, but I think Jake's right with fluoride.
The audience
That's way
is
too high a number, right? Am I retarded? Fluoride?
Yes.
Isn't that a metal?
Well, yes, you are retarded because no, it's not a metal.
Oh, I thought fluoride was a metal.
But Jake and the audience are so close to being right. Fluoride. Fluoride is a compound that contains fluorine.
Mother of pearl.
Oh,
I don't like this.
Jake's
As soon
angry.
as he said close, I was like, oh, it's fluorine. Dadgummit.
Question 7. 10. Las Vegas would be much less enticing without this element.
is hookers an element?
5 seconds.
Prostitutium.
It's sex workersium now.
It's over.
Zane.
Zane?
Jake.
Is it neon?
That's what I said.
I says neon.
Why is mine
Hey!
backwards? Is your guys' is not backwards?
It's not backwards to us.
It's not backwards to us.
What?
Yeah,
For real?
no, that's frontwards.
No. This
Yeah, it
looks
reads normal
to
here.
you.
Grumpy said brothel.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Question 8. 15. One of the three main components of most modern fertilizers, along with nitrogen and potassium.
So it's not nitrogen. Is what you're saying.
I was definitely going to guess nitrogen.
I was gonna too.
5 seconds.
You'll notice that because I am very clever, each of the clues had the number of words in it corresponding to the element number.
Oh my god, really?
What?
There are 15 words in this question.
That's insane.
And there are 10 words in this question. 9 words in this one, and so forth.
Yeah, you're really
What
proud
did
of
you say for
yourself,
one?
aren't you?
What?
What did you say for the one?
Zane's ultimate nerd. Oh my gosh.
First. Oh my god, no wonder. Bravo.
Okay, what's the answer?
All right,
Put
Jake.
Sulfur.
Sulfur.
Everybody put sulfur?
It's things that farts explode, you know? Like, I don't know.
Audience got
Phosphorus.
it.
Fuck.
Oh,
Audience.
fuck.
Audience got it.
That's
God
right.
damn it.
Fuck.
Is that what was
Alright.
stored next to nitrogen in fucking Beirut?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Is that right? It was one of
Ooh,
these
that could
two
be.
components that fucking was stored together, and then someone, I don't know, smoked a cigar or some shit and blew up a city. But
It's usually like the potassium and the ammonia. It's,
Alden,
I don't know.
never drink Lagavulin straight out of the bottle.
this is my birthday bottle, and I'm gonna do what the fuck I want to. I'm gonna I don't give a shit.
All right, Zane.
Okay, so the audience has 5. Alden and Nick are tied with 4. Jake has 3.
The world is right.
Round 2, dog days.
Well, I might be
Question
good at this. I
1.
like hot dogs.
What 1961 children's novel concludes with the death of the narrator's 2 red-bone coonhounds?
Ooh. That's a sad fucking book.
Yep. 5 seconds.
It's not Harry Potter, Jake.
All right, Jake.
Where the red fern grows.
Alden.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, everyone gets that.
Yeah, we're old. We all read it.
That's not an old person thing. I had to read that in elementary
Oh,
school.
did you really?
That's how I knew about it.
I don't
Oh,
even know if I don't even remember if I ever read it.
Of course, Zach knows the names of the dogs.
Old Dan and Little Ann. How much did the dogs cost?
I don't know.
I don't either.
Question 2. What is the very on-the-nose name of the villain of 101 Dalmatians?
Oh, yeah. What's more on the nose, her first or last?
All right, we're good.
Yeah, let's
All
just.
right, question.
Right.
Jake.
Cruella DeVille.
Yeah.
No, no one's missing that.
No.
Question 3. What dog is the subject of this movie quote? I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too.
It's also a band.
5 seconds.
Yeah, the movie's a comment. Well, the book was a commentary on economics, right?
I've heard that, but I've also heard that the extent to which it was just a big metaphor for monetary policy has been greatly overstated.
It's pretty well there. I mean, it's called Oz, OZ ounces. You're going down the gold road to the greenbacks. Well, and it was the silver slippers in the book that
But what are the flying monkeys? Is that like the politicians or?
There's a whole lot of allegories to it, but it's wild how much it is.
Moving on.
Question 4. What dog is the subject of this movie quote? Ain't no rule that says a dog can't play basketball.
Oh, you guys are pulling on my 90s baby heartstrings right now.
3, 2, 1.
Jake.
Airbud.
It
Why
is.
do I look backwards to me?
Question 5. Number question, so whoever gets closest gets the point. How many HDBs, also known as hot dogs and bugs, did Joey Chestnut eat to win the 2025 Nathan's Famous International Hot Dog Eating Contest?
All right.
I think about what I could eat, then I times it by 2 and add 20.
All right,
Zane,
Jake.
114.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Fucking call Pepto 45. I thought that was
Almost
hot.
sure it's somewhere around 70.
Oh my God. If that's correct, then I'm going to.
Now that he said it, I'm pretty sure
Has
it's
it
in the
to
70s.
Oh
70
my
and a half.
fucking God. That's insane.
Yay, I win.
Oh my
Unless the
God.
audience beat me on that. I don't know.
No,
Did
the
they? What'd they
audience
get?
didn't put in anything.
That's a lot of
Zach
goddamn.
said 69.
69. Oh, hey.
Question 6. Besides the University of Georgia, name one of the other 3 Division I FBS programs that use a bulldog as their mascot. One is another SEC school, but you will receive a bonus point for either of the other 2.
Zane.
What's the third one? All right, 3 seconds.
Jake.
Gonzaga and Mississippi State.
Alden.
9/11 was an inside job.
Nick.
Georgetown. I don't think they're FBS, but
Audience says Mississippi State. So Jake and the audience both get 2 for Mississippi State. The other 2 are Fresno State and Louisiana Tech.
That's what I said.
Gonzaga and Georgetown are not Division I FBS.
Oh, football. I was thinking basketball.
yeah, Division I for basketball is different. Yeah.
Yep. Nope.
I said I didn't think Georgetown was FBS, but I couldn't think of anything else. So.
Brain fart. Yeah, that's my bad.
At the end of round 2, we've got Nick. Alden with 12, Jake with 13, Nick with 14, and the audience with 15.
Oh, you started with me, so I thought I was in first because last time you started with the highest, so you gave me like a dick tease.
So it all comes down to how well you've been following the sports in the off season.
Nope.
Horribly.
Nope.
Not well at all.
Nope. What are sports?
Question 1. What quarterback signed a 1-year, $13.6 million deal with
Oh.
the Pittsburgh Steelers on June 7th, 2025?
Well, y'all should get this one.
Okay. Yeah, if I didn't get this one, you'd have to take my Pittsburgher card away.
Don't call yourself a Pittsburgher. That's just sounds so stupid. Is that what y'all are called?
Yes.
A what?
Gosh, a Pittsburgher?
Pittsburgher? No, don't call me that.
How many Pittsburghers?
Or colloquially
Thank you
Yinzer.
very much.
You'd have to take my Yinzer card away.
No.
All right, Jake.
It's Mr. Rogers.
Alden.
Oh my God, I said the wrong name. Aaron Jones is what I said, but I meant Aaron Rodgers. That's insane.
Oh, why did you
Aaron Jones?
You did say a Packer.
That's the problem. Oh my God. Jesus Christ. Well, I don't even know what to do about that. Zane, you figure that out. I'm sorry.
No points. If it makes you feel any better, the audience doesn't get points either because they were a few seconds too late.
Well, that's insane. That I was like, as soon as I wrote it, I was like, that doesn't feel right. And I was so sure, though.
All right.
Because I heard the news. I know who we're talking about.
Nick needs to miss the next 3, and I didn't get him. Let's go.
I can't even get a Steeler question.
What quarterback signed a 5-year, $265 million deal with the San Francisco 49ers on May 16th, 2025? He will now make more per game than he did under his entire rookie contract.
5 seconds.
Jake.
Brock Purdy.
Alden.
I got Brock Purr, so, you figure that out.
Hardee.
It is Brock Purdy.
Audience says Brock Purdy as well.
Aaron Jones. God damn it.
Question 3. The recent trade of what NBA star from the Phoenix Suns to the Houston Rockets also somehow involved 5 other teams, making it the NBA's first ever 7-way deal.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was insane.
What?
Yeah.
That's like in the episode of the league where they all fuck up the draft and they do the 5-way trade with where Taco got 3 kickers or whatever. Anyway.
5 seconds.
I'm not answering this.
All right. Jake.
Kevin Durant.
Alden.
This is Larry Bird, obviously.
Nick.
Yao Ming.
It is Kevin Durant.
Someone watches any basketball.
The audience didn't get it either.
Oh.
Catching up. Let's go.
Question 4. On July 1st, 2025, what hockey winger signed a 6-year extension with the Florida Panthers after leading them to the Stanley Cup? He had been traded there in March after spending the first 16 seasons of his career with the Boston Bruins.
I know zero hockey.
What? John McCain. I don't know.
I'm gonna say the first name that came into my head.
Yeah.
3
Wayne
seconds.
Gretzky, obviously.
Jake.
Said Ovechkin.
Oh, he is a hockey player.
I know. That's why I said the
Alden.
first name that came in my head.
Wayne Gretzky.
For some reason, I'm thinking Brad Marchand.
Audience has nothing. Nick wins trivia on that question because
Oh my God.
Marchand.
I'm going P.
Would I have won, Zane?
Alden finishes with 15. Audience has 18. Jake has 22. Nick has 23.
I hate my life so much. You've got to be kidding me. Oh my gosh. I hate everything. Whatever. You were over there, right, Nick? On that side?
Yeah, I'm somewhere. I'm
whatever.
At least I picked someone who I knew spent a lot of his career with the Bruins. I didn't
Shut
know
up.
he signed a 6-year contract with the Panthers.
How do you
but I
sign a
was pretty
6-year
sure.
contract after already being in the league for 16
He's
years?
been around forever. I'm
nuts.
really surprised by that.
All right, y'all. Well, we're going to wrap up. Watch some funnies here in a second. But yeah, appreciate everybody sticking around. I thought we had some great conversations. We're just so y'all know, we're planning to change a little bit of the tone of the show and try to be more theme based and talk about a specific topic each night and reference current events that happen to coincide with that topic. That will be coming in the next few months. We'll keep it going exactly how it is until then. We're also going to try to develop a little bit better layout. So it might be a little bit bigger on your phone screen. If you're watching on your phone, it'll be better for clips. Yeah, a lot of things in the works. Also, tomorrow night, the final episode of Cascade Effect Season 1 comes out at 8 p.m. Mountain Time, so 10 p.m. Eastern. It's not necessarily the conclusion to the first season, but it is the final episode that we will release for the time being. So yeah, make sure you tune in Peaceful Network or our Rumble channel or X tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Mountain.
Join the Dollar Media Club.
join the Dollar Media Club if you want to hop in the Discord and mix it up with Zane and Nick and Alden and Steven and everybody else who's in there. Some Quack, I believe, is in there. Grumpy. We got a few others. We got a whole bunch of people who are eligible to join that I don't know if they realize that they can actually join the Discord.
If you're a subscriber, join the Discord and get in on the conversation. It's more fun.
Yeah, it is way more fun.
Contribute to the show. You like
the audience has the same sentiment I do, which is I hate it so much when Nick wins. Completely agree, some Quack. Completely agree. Yeah, I think that'll do it for the housekeeping. So go over to peacefulc.network and check out our other shows. We had another episode of Philosophical Fall Guy come out this past week. We will have more episodes of Free Georgia Podcast and Wrexham Texan come out in the very near future. And you can always come back each week for more Liberty Libations on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. All right, let's
Perfect
watch.
way to start your weekend.
Best way to start your weekend. That was not what I meant to do. Wonder if Alden's ever coming back.
Who cares?
That's great. Hang on one second. Let me get this up and running. Here we go. Turn that up a little bit. There we go. This was submitted to us by, I think, some Quack on the Discord. Here's our first funny of the night.
They call me Cuba Pete.
I love it. That's so good. That's so good. All right. Next one up. I think this was an Alden. I think Alden submitted this. Here you go.
Amigo é coisa pra se guardar.
That's messed up.
That's so stinking funny. Oh, that's so good. All right. So this is both funny and impressive. This is a stunt woman practicing her headshots for films.
Yeah, I would have never thought of that as something that would need to be practiced, but I guess it makes sense.
It absolutely needs to be practiced. Nikki has definitely practiced that before.
Yeah, that just goes completely limp. Like, that does not look fun.
It's not easy. You definitely have to do it when there's padding around, because that is
all I heard was completely limp, and you need to have padding around.
Yeah, Alden. Yep. Here's a stunt woman practicing her headshots.
Damn. Oh my god. That's brutal.
Right? All right. He's demonstrating how he broke his toe.
This is what happened. I was walking like this. It slipped out of my hand.
And it hit his toe again.
Like this, it slipped out of my hand.
Oh my gosh. All right, the final one of the night, submitted by Alden, and just such a perfect way to end the episode. Here we go.
I'm not sure why I'm here or what I'm doing, but there's a reason.
And we're discussing the rezoning for the Portillos. Do you have any comments on that?
For what?
We're discussing the rezoning on 53rd for...
Well, I live on 63rd.
Again, we're here to hear comments about the rezoning.
Well, I don't like Facebook. And I don't like the internet because I can't find a job. The library blocked my password. Now tell me, does that make any sense to you? I'm not quite sure why I'm here.
This is why libertarianism doesn't work.
Why
exactly?
I hate that it's so accurate. The Parks and Rec wasn't exaggerating.
You know that woman's a card-carrying member of the Libertarian Party.
Oh my God.
My gosh. Oh Lord. All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to episode 133 of Liberty Libations. I think that'll do it for this week, unless anybody else has something to say.
Penis.